Once you get real estate, you do have something to pass on.
Yeah.
What you don't want is the default plan. The default plan is your whatever state you're living in, they have probate. And they'll let you know what they want to do with those assets if you don't have a plan for it. So the point of the trust,
Right.
It's actually not for any asset protection.
You're checking out the Investor Shed podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom, and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet.
Welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. I am Nick Beveridge, your host, here with my okay co-host, Jeremy Kitchen. Good morning.
It's an okay day for Jeremy Kitchen. How we doing, Nick?
Doing pretty good. I just dissed on you there with the okay. You're great.
You know what? If my wife called me okay, I'd be like, that's really kind of you.
That's true.
So, like, you're gonna have to try harder than that to hurt me.
That's true. That's true.
Speaking of hurting you, this episode is all about letting people not hurt you with asset protection.
Oh, that's right. I believe you guys.
That was okay.
It was okay.
Yeah. It was okay like I am, right?
You're okay.
I'm an okay guy.
You're an okay guy. You're a stand-up guy.
I'm sitting, but that's okay.
Well, that's true. So today we're going to talk about asset protection and estate planning.
Yeah.
Something that we probably shouldn't be talking about because we're not licensed attorneys or anything like that.
We're not qualified to talk about this.
But we do it anyway. We
Say at the beginning of the episode, we're not attorneys, and please consult your own attorney. This is not legal advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. So, you can't sue me.
Well, I think this episode is going to be really ideal for like the younger entrepreneur that's just kind of starting out, like how to get organized, how to stay organized.
Yeah. Or the older entrepreneur like us who's figuring out what to do now.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to talk about insurance. We're going to talk about trust. We're going to talk about LLCs. We're talking about rentals and how to hold those. Expected cost, like what does it cost for all this crap?
Yeah.
And then how to stay organized over time with different methods of, online storage and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Man, what should we be eating during this episode, yo?
I would say tofu.
Tofu.
Yep.
Yeah, because of the 75 hard 6.
Right. Nick's doing the 75 hard 6, which is the 75 hard challenge. But 6 days of it.
6 days. Gotta go camping.
He's going
Sunday.
camping.
Camping on Sunday.
Get a handful of tofu and some garlic. I think that'd be a good tasty meal.
Oh yeah. Really. It'll make you breathe right.
I see what you did there. You probably didn't see what you did there if you're listening to this podcast, but
the listeners don't get it.
Nope.
But the watchers do.
But the watchers will get everything. So stay tuned. Enjoy asset protection and estate planning. Okay, welcome back to the Investor Shed podcast with Jeremy Kitchen and Nick Beveridge. Today we have a very special episode, don't we, Nick?
Every episode is very special, but this one is especially special.
Especially, we're the hosts. We're allowed to think this is special. Like, we like what we do. It's special to us. So deal with our exploits about being special. Asset protection and estate planning today. So good stuff.
Yeah, this is a topic that could be taboo for people that aren't attorneys to like talk about it, but fuck it, we're gonna do it anyway, huh?
Fuck it, man. No, but since Nick said that, like, we're not attorneys, so again, if you've listened to this episode and you're trying to take legal advice from this, we are not lawyers, we are not attorneys, we're not giving investment advice. We are simply sharing something that has worked for us and our peers.
Yes, especially what has been working for me lately, because I actually finally started hiring attorneys to help better protect myself and get myself reorganized.
Thank you.
That way, I can take on this world with vengeance, just like Bruce Willis did in Die Hard 3.
Die Hard 3 with a vengeance with Samuel L. Jackson as well.
Yeah. So, before we dive deep, why don't we start with the real basics? I want to start, if you don't mind, Jeremy. Let's talk to the young entrepreneur.
Okay.
The young guy, the young gal, just starting out. You don't really have much. Where do you begin when it comes to estate planning and asset protection when you don't have shit?
That's a good question on where to begin. Like, if it depends on everyone's situations, of course, and not having anything, like, you could have some money in the bank, you could not have some money in the bank. Like, I think what state of asset protection you need depends on really what your starting point is.
Yeah. So I remember, Jeremy, when I was like 20 years old and I was going through that rich dad, poor dad phase of just nonstop.
I'm still going through that.
Consuming all that stuff. What really stuck out listening to all that stuff was he made it pretty clear that you have a choice in this life. Like if you start early enough, you can choose to be rich.
Right.
You just follow this path.
Yep.
So at that stage in my life, I realized to myself, you know what, I'm going to be rich someday. You know, 15 years later ish, like made it happen.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised. However, I wish I would have just started off with better advice when it came to building wealth.
Right.
So today, estate planning, asset protection. What do you do when you don't got shit? Here's what I'm going to recommend right away. Get organized immediately. I think if you have enough money to at least invest about $100 a month, you should buy first life insurance.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, like, after you're done talking here, I'm going to hit a couple of my own points. But life insurance is a very good starting block. There's obviously term and full life insurance. Term is typically cheaper.
Yeah, term's awesome. When you're young, go with term.
But also, like, kind of piggybacking off that for a second, like, if you could start up a full life policy that gains cash value when you're young, you know, the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. So if you can start that earlier, that might be better for you too. But also, term life insurance is very good.
Well, I'm going to recommend both.
Okay.
If you can afford it. If you can afford $150 a month or so, or maybe, you know, whatever you can afford, I would go 75% of that budget put towards term life if you're younger. You know, this is like a 10-year policy where if you died within the next 10 years, you'd be paid out. And for if you're younger, like $50 will get you like almost $1 million.
Yeah. You say
so
you'll be paid out, like your beneficiary will be paid
You'll be
out.
benefit, or if you become like permanently disabled, you could potentially, depending on your plan, you could get that money too.
Sure. Yeah.
Even if you don't die. Rare circumstances, but it does happen.
Sure.
But I believe it's just looking back, what would I do differently if I were starting off fresh? Now, everything that I've learned over the last, decade and a half, that's what I think I would start with. Get insurance right away, because then you'll be in that mind state of, shit, if I died, I actually do have money. I actually have a lot of money I've got to pass on.
Yeah.
So are you going to build a family someday? Do you have a partner? Who's going to be that beneficiary? And what do you want them to do with that money?
Yeah.
Now, that second part, what do you want them to do with it? You have no control over that unless you have a trust.
Right. Your trust can execute on your behalf. Yes.
Yeah. And this is another thing. I would say just go ahead and do it. Now, you can go on LegalZoom. You can go on ChatGPT. You can get a trust drafted up like that for free on ChatGPT.
Yep.
I don't recommend it, but maybe I would if you don't have anything and if you don't have the $2,000 to hire an attorney to do it for you. So if you at least have a trust generated by ChatGPT, say, this is me and my life, and this is my address, and this is what I have, and this is everything about me. Please draft up a trust. But before you do, ask me another 10 questions of what should be in here.
Yep.
AI these days, I mean, it'll just spit it out. Now, that trust, does it have to be registered with anyone? No. You just have to go get it notarized.
Yep.
So you take it to a notary, you get it notarized, and then boom, you have a legitimate, legal, valid trust. That trust is useless unless you fund it.
Right.
And what I mean by that is you go to your bank and say, hey, this is my trust paperwork. Make the trust the beneficiary. And then once you start accumulating assets, you want that trust to be the owner. And you are the trustee that dictates what's going on, and you have control over it.
So with trust, obviously, you start going down this very open-ended road. There's revocable living trusts, irrevocable living trusts. There's a lot of different ways to set these up.
So let's keep it simple for those. For those have 20 million plus net worth. You might consider an irrevocable trust. For those 99% of the people out there listening to this, maybe 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Revocable trust is what you want. You want to be able to amend this trust and be able to make changes to it over time.
Yep.
Irrevocable trust, there are certain benefits to it. If mega wealthy, that's not for you. Right. I would imagine that Warren Buffett is not listening to my podcast.
If you are though, Warren, thank you so much for listening.
He's probably like, hey, you should probably have at least 1 or 2 of those. Shut up, Warren.
Shut up, Warren.
Shut up. Fucking glad your friend just died.
Wow. Okay.
I'm joking, Warren.
So yeah, revocable living trust. That's exactly what Nick says. What that means is you can put assets in and you can take assets out. It's something that you can amend on the fly, which is really nice. It's not like, the bucket's been sealed and there's a padlock on it. Like hey, there's a new LLC or a new business or a new piece of real estate that goes in there.
Yeah.
It's completely maneuverable, but you just have to stay on top of that.
Yeah. So let's backtrack a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Young entrepreneur person. Not a guy or a gal these days. You can't say one or the other,
Just
right?
A person, yeah.
Yeah.
If you identify as a person, great.
So, yeah, young person, entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I got life insurance. I've got this trust set up. What now? Well, I would imagine you're out there hustling, getting business somehow, whether you are a real estate agent or you're a mortgage person or you've got a junk removal business. We can speak about the service industry quite a bit. Don't know a lot about the other types of businesses like manufacturing and that kind of stuff. I'm not really sure how all that works. I'm pretty savvy when it comes to the service end of things. And what I know is that you should probably have an S Corp.
Sure.
LLC that's taxed as an S Corp. For the business side of things, that when you're creating active income on a regular basis, ordinary income.
Yep.
With capital gains. An S Corp is typically the way to go.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How do you set up an S Corp if you have a C Corp already?
If you have a C Corp already.
So Ginger Snap Media is a C Corp.
Okay.
I've always been like, how do I set this up? I have no idea.
Have your tax guy just amended for you.
I just pay the shitload of taxes. I pay like my...
Really?
Yeah, it's like 42%.
Hey, you don't need a C Corp, bro.
But
I guess it's good we're having this episode.
Right, but like you can't... By the time I always think about it, it's always way too late because June you can't do anything. Like you have to make that amendment by March 31st, right? So it's like by
okay, put it in your
September.
calendar.
Yeah, September. I need to be talking to my tax people. Basically.
Who's your tax person?
Tom Robinson.
Send him an email right now. Or, after this podcast and be like, hey, we need to change this.
He's super busy.
S Corp. As long as he has the email, he'll get to it eventually.
Sure. Yeah.
He's got
but
people
that's a good point, Rick, because your S Corp, it gives you a lot of protection and it gives you a lot of tax benefits as well. And I know that. I just haven't set it up yet.
Yeah. And as far as protection, I don't know if there's really much of a difference there, but
it gives you more protection than being, your own personal entity. And if you're doing business.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You get the LLC protection is what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, and that's the whole point of this. Some protection's better than none, and that's why we feel comfortable giving some advice out there because it's better than just going out there and doing everything in your own personal name.
Right. And so to backtrack just a little bit, we're talking about the entrepreneur, the person, the young person that doesn't have any assets. Why would they start a trust if they don't have any assets? Like why would they start out on that foot rather than try to, get an asset or two before they do that?
Well, because you want to get in the mindset early on, and this is just my belief, my theory. If you can get in that mindset early on that I do have something,
yes,
I have something here that I'm going to pass, some sort of a legacy.
Yeah,
that I'm going to leave.
Hey, Coeur d'Alene, are you ready to take your real estate game to the next level?
Join us for an exclusive 2-day real estate investing seminar right here in Coeur d'Alene, September 21st and 22nd.
We have an amazing lineup of guest speakers that are traveling out here to teach you everything you need to know to succeed in real estate investing.
That's right. How to find a deal. What is a good deal? How to form an LLC. What tax strategies do I use?
We'll dive in on how to wholesale real estate, how to do fix and flips, and how to purchase long-term rentals.
And that's just the beginning. We're also going to dive into self-storage units, property management, and how to invest out of state. Hey, Nick, what's the market going to do in 2025?
I don't know, but we got Kathy Fecky from Bigger Pockets coming to forecast the 2025 real estate market. And we're going to talk about how to create those business leverage systems.
Plus, we're going to learn how to get your mindset right. What's a short-term rental versus a mid-term rental? How do I build passive income, or should I be building massive income?
What to do? What do we do?
I don't even know what to do with my hands.
I don't even know what to do. We're going to learn. I'm telling you, this is an opportunity you do not want to miss.
Tickets are limited, very affordable, and you do not want to miss networking with these amazing people going to be at this event.
Yes, so hurry.
Run.
Click on the link.
Go to northidahorei.com and click on the 2024 Fall Conference tab. Get you signed up.
They're going to sell out, I promise you.
It's gone. It's going to be gone.
Bye-bye.
It's some sort of a plan that I can control after I'm dead.
Sure.
What happens with my money? Because if you've gotten the life insurance, now you do have something to pass on.
Right.
Once you get real estate, you do have something to pass on.
Yeah.
What you don't want is the default plan.
Right.
The default plan is whatever state you're living in, they have probate. And they'll let you know what they want to do with those assets if you don't have a plan for it. So the point of the trust,
right,
it's actually not for any asset protection. You don't get any additional, it's if you get sued, you get sued.
Right.
The trust is not for that. The trust is so that you can have ultimate control over your estate, and you can you don't have to go off the state's plan for you when you die.
Sure.
Or if you have kids someday, what happens to the kids?
Right. And you're absolutely right. But like, I think I do agree with you 100%. But I think like if you're a young entrepreneur and you don't have anything, and in my mind, like if you don't have a family, you don't have kids, you don't have like parents who are active in your life, or maybe a trust isn't for you to start. Maybe get your kids and maybe get a spouse before you decide to do a trust.
Why is that?
Just because, like what point does it make, I suppose? Like if you die and you have nothing and you have no assets anyway, like it doesn't go to anybody. It goes to pay off your debts, which you don't have any like beneficiaries that take it on anyway. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like this is what you're doing is you're pouring a concrete foundation when it comes to your trust.
That makes sense.
And so, I mean, everybody out there, you use whatever analogy you want when you're building your assets over your lifetime. I feel like the trust is like it's your concrete foundation that goes under the frost line. But if you don't have that concrete foundation and you have heavy winds one day as you're building your house, it could collapse.
That makes sense.
Obviously, that would mean like if you died, basically you'd have a mess,
right,
for somebody else to try to clean up through the court system, and it's a hassle.
Sure.
But I feel like it's just my own theory. If you get that stuff set up, if you get the life insurance, if you get the trust, all of a sudden you'll have this weight lifted off your shoulder, this like freedom mindset of, wow, if I passed, my family's going to be fine. Like it's just an extra bit of confidence throughout your day to know that if you got hit by a bus, you're not going to leave a huge mess behind.
Other than the blood.
Yeah, that's true. Other than the blood. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But again, the reason why I'm asking is because with a revocable living trust, you're going to be adding your beneficiary as you go anyway, and you're going to be adding your family members and things like that.
Yeah.
If you don't have that stuff, I guess it doesn't matter who it goes to because you don't. But I think that's personal and situational, 100%. If you don't have a spouse, you don't have kids, you don't have anything, maybe start with the life insurance and work your way up to the trust. But again, the things that you're doing here, you're not just going to do a one and done, set it and forget it. You're going to be constantly evaluating, once a month, once a year. Okay, am I changing my beneficiary? Do I have any new assets to put in this thing?
Yeah.
So you're going to be changing it no matter what. You might as well change it either after you get the spouse and the kids or before.
Yeah.
And it's all personal preference, like I said. So,
all right. Well, anytime you go on vacation, even if you're not going to be around a pool or water, it's always a good idea to have a pair of swim trunks.
I love it. That's a good analogy.
Because you never know when.
Yeah.
You might want to go swimming.
Yeah. Just
it's always good to be prepared, or else you'll have to buy those swim trunks on the vacation. You're going to spend $30.
Just like my dad said, it's always good to carry a bottle of ketchup in your pocket, just in case you have a hot dog that day.
Yeah. Doesn't cost you anything extra. You just pull it right out of the fridge.
Get your Get your ketchup and put it in your pocket, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly what you're talking about, though. Like, this is good preparation to have, and that's why I'm asking this question.
And if you had that mindset right now of like, man, well, isn't it, man, it's such a hassle having to deal with the trust and, or, you know, putting things in and out of that. I think you're only going to be saying that if you've never done it before.
Sure.
It's not that complicated, guys.
Right.
The complicated part is just getting it set up and then getting you listed as a beneficiary. And then any LLCs that you have, you just make that trust the beneficiary. You just make that trust the member of the LLC. That's it. It doesn't have to own anything else directly.
Yep.
So we'll get in depth on how simple this can be.
Right.
But if it gets, the reason why I am recommending that you just set it up right now is because I waited 15 years to set mine up.
Yes.
And it was a big fucking hassle.
Sure.
To reorganize everything. If I just set it up from the start, it's easy. It would have just been easy.
That makes sense.
I don't have to put things in and out of it. You start with that block. You're not constantly like, gosh, I got to maintain this foundation. You know, as you go through your building process.
Right.
You set it up one time, it typically stays there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. You get the trust set up. This is, again, that's just for asset. So this is just for estate planning.
Yep.
The trust doesn't give you any asset protection. LLCs do. And they are limited. And that's why they call them limited liability companies, because they're going to limit the liability within whatever that LLC owns. So good rule of thumb, if you're out there buying rental properties and you want to know, well, should I have an LLC for every rental property that I own? Not necessarily. What Matt Swanson recommends, because he's the guy on this.
He's the guy. We got to get him back on the podcast.
He deals with hundreds of investors and
including me.
Yep. Been in and out of court many times. What he found was a pretty good, rule of thumb, which I really enjoy. I like this. It's simple. For every, you should have one LLC for just about every $200,000 to $250,000 in equity. In equity in properties. So I recently did this and reorganized my rental portfolio. And I took one LLC I wasn't using, and I put two properties in that one. I took one of my properties that was just in my personal name, and it had $300,000 of equity. I'm like, this one just needs its own.
Right. This one's got its own little bucket.
Yeah. And then again and again, a couple other times, just making sure that I'm, not overkill and it's not underkill. And you might be asking yourself, well, why don't you just get an LLC for every property? It only costs $100 for an LLC
in Idaho.
Yeah. And it's free to maintain every year. So why not just have the ultimate protection and have every property its
Depends
own
on how many
LLC?
properties you get.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
The reason why you may want to limit or not just have overkill all the time is because it does cost money to maintain these LLCs through taxes every year.
Yep.
Like your tax guy is going to probably charge you a few $100s per LLC. So you got to make sure, is it worth it to have this many?
Right.
Because like I had like 13 LLCs and you get like a $7,000 bill every year. And it's like, man, I didn't even use 3 of them.
Yep.
I just wasted $1,500 a year. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
So that's something you got to consider too.
Right. That's something you have to consider. Right.
You guys got to consider. You can't just, for asset protection and estate planning, it's not just an open checkbook all the time.
Right. And like there is, certain risks and there's certain pros and cons to having all your rental properties in one LLC. There's certain pros and cons for having one LLC per property. You just have to weigh your own risk. And that's something I would definitely talk with your own financial advisor about or your own tax attorney about to see what structure is right for you.
Exactly. Now, there's also what you'll hear a lot in the industry is like people using other states for their LLC. Like, for instance, Wyoming's a big one. Delaware, Texas is a new one. There's another real popular one. Which one?
There's Delaware, Wyoming. You said Texas. I mean, Idaho's not bad, but it's
Yeah, it's pretty normal.
Yeah.
Here's what you want to do. Whatever state that you're operating in,
Yes.
let's say you have if you have a rental property in Idaho, you want an LLC in Idaho.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that the owner of that LLC has to be you.
That's true.
Obviously, you would think, oh, yeah, you're right. The trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost.
We're getting there.
So you are the trustee of the trust.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have multiple rental properties, what you'll want is a Wyoming LLC,
Mm-hmm.
to keep it simple, just because what's great about a Wyoming LLC is it's cheap like Idaho. It's $100.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't live there or have a residence there, you've got to use some sort of a company online that will charge an extra fee to use their address,
Mm-hmm.
and they set it up for you. But it's pretty simple. It cost me $40
Yeah.
to set up a Wyoming LLC, $40 for the company for their fee, and then $100 to the state of Wyoming. What was nice about that is it's all their address and their registered agent
Okay.
on file. So if you were to go look up this LLC, who's this LLC?
Mm-hmm.
You can't really see anything. You just kind of get stuck
Cool.
right there if you're publicly searching.
Yep.
With this company.
Okay.
But the owner of that LLC is the trust.
Right.
So you've got yourself, the trustee. The trust owns this Wyoming LLC.
Mm-hmm.
The Wyoming LLC is a member of your other Idaho LLCs if you're in Idaho and you have rental properties here.
Mm-hmm.
On the operating agreement.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you have to make amendments, go ahead. You can always reorganize all this stuff with simple minutes and addendums to your operating agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you have like 4 layers of protection before it comes to you. But that's actually not the point. If you get sued, like at a rental property in Idaho,
Mm-hmm.
somebody slips and falls and there's liability
Mm-hmm.
in that rental, it's contained within that LLC in Idaho. So this is some of the confusion when it comes to like having an out-of-state or Wyoming LLC. So what's the protection there? If you get slip and fall in Idaho on this
Mm-hmm.
LLC, and you can sue that LLC and you can potentially get money out of it. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That can happen. At least it's contained within that LLC.
Yep.
Ideally, not more than $200,000 in equity or so.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways to also push that protection up a little bit more if you're able to get HELOCs on your rental properties. You can basically cloud the title with all these liens, and attorneys won't even want to bother because it's like, okay, yeah, there's nothing to really sue here.
Right.
It's contained within the LLC.
And the terminology for that's called piercing the corporate veil, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, piercing the corporate veil would be doing something, I think, criminal.
Okay.
And so that wouldn't apply in this case.
Okay. We'll have to look
If
up the
you're
term.
better, if you're well organized and you're operating appropriately and you're not commingling funds, and there's some sort of a liability. The whole point of the LLC is to limit the liability there. That LLC can be sued.
Yes.
And it could win. There could be a judgment. Can they collect anything? Is a different story.
Right. And you try to make it as hard as you can for a prosecuting attorney to actually get into your account and get into your stuff. I mean, and that's protecting all the way down to just the LLC level, like you're saying. It's that 4 to 5 layers of protection at that point. And an attorney's going to see it and be like, this is going to be a lot of work.
Yeah. So you might be asking yourself, what's the point of the Wyoming LLC then? So what's unique about Wyoming is that they have charging order protection built in to their state LLCs. So what that means is if you personally had a big liability and you got sued, you had this judgment, and all of a sudden they come to you and be like, what do you owe, or what do you own? We're going to come knocking at your, we want to sell some property. Like what kind of cash you own?
Yeah.
If all you have is, well, I've got this trust, and the trust is the owner of this LLC in Wyoming, they have to start there. So if they go and they have this judgment, which they can, let's say you owe $200,000, and that Wyoming LLC owes $200,000, you have charging order protection, which means that any distributions that you take as an owner, you would have to give to that creditor.
Right.
But you don't have to. The Wyoming LLC is protected against foreclosure or the sale of the properties, anything like that, all that they can take from you is owner distributions.
Gotcha. Okay.
Are you following me here?
Yeah.
Now, you can still pay yourself a management fee. There are other ways you can get around getting some money out of that LLC. I'm not recommending this by any means.
Right.
I'm just saying the whole point is if it protects your properties from you. That's what the Wyoming LLC is for.
I love it.
And not the other way around.
Right.
It's not protecting you personally. The Wyoming LLC is a barrier to your properties.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, from you as a individual.
Right.
So it's a protection on the other way around.
Sure.
The Idaho LLC protects you from any liability there because it's contained within the LLC. So you have the Idaho LLC that's protecting you personally or any other businesses you have.
Yeah.
But the Wyoming LLC is protecting your properties and your LLCs from you.
Okay. So
from
basically
you being
branches out twice, right? So if it zings back to you, it can't zing back here, and that's
Hopefully this isn't too confusing for you guys.
right.
We could write it out on a board, but
I have a heart on the board. We're not erasing that.
Yeah. Any questions about that, Jeremy? Because I know that could be a little confusing and hard to understand unless you see it on paper.
Sure. I think like for that obviously is like consult your attorney.
Yeah.
Just to be honest with you,
See if it's even necessary with you. Like if you don't own, $1 million worth of real estate and multiple, houses, it's probably not. I don't know. Is it worth $140? Maybe.
Yeah, could be.
Maybe it's a good habit to just get into right away. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think you're right. Like I think it's really good habits to get into, Nick, especially since you are going to be starting this, like you said, this great concrete foundation. Like you don't want to get where Nick did. And 15 years down the road and be like, oh, I should really start up something that's better than what I have.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the mess your attorney and everyone. I bet they were pretty upset with you.
Were they upset? No. No. What they did was they just gave me instruction. I took care of it all.
That's awesome.
What I loved about the attorneys that we hired is I was able to just go over what I had, and they just gave me instructions, and it was actually pretty simple.
Okay.
It was simple for me because I've been doing it for a while, and I know what it means to have an operating agreement,
right?
And what an addendum is, what minutes are, and what's required to get them, and that kind of stuff. And so maybe we should break that down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Simplify that. If you're newer out there, you don't even have an LLC. Where do you start, Jeremy?
You start with getting an LLC and an operating agreement and a bank account.
What's an operating agreement?
An operating agreement is basically what's going to happen in the LLC, how it's going to be structured, ownership. Basically, an operating agreement sounds exactly like it sounds. It's how you're going to be operating the business, how money is going to be handled, how distributions are going to be handled. If there's a dissolution or anything like that, how that's going to be handled.
Yeah. So when you're getting an LLC, you might wonder, well, how do I even do that? It's actually super simple.
In Idaho.
In Idaho. It's simple in a lot of states. A lot of states will offer this now. You go to the Secretary of State website. So your Idaho Secretary of State. And you create an account and you search, if you want a certain business name, you search and see if that name's available. If nothing pops up, that means it's probably available. Ideally, you create an account. You can do this online. And what you need is, in Idaho, $100. And you're going to want that name of the LLC. So for instance, like one of my LLCs that I use the most is called Nick Estates LLC. It's simple for me. I just write my first name and then Estates, and then so many people copy me, which is funny.
That's what you recommended. I did my first LLC. You're just like, just do Jeremy Estates. So now I use that one for hard money brokering. So it's whatever the name is, LLC is what's typical. And then you're going to need to register who's the agent, like who's going to be, not necessarily who's an owner of or a manager of your LLC, but who is the state going to communicate with? Yes.
For your annual filings or dissolution or whatever or amendments that you need with your business.
Yeah.
So let's not overcomplicate this. It could be you, or it could be one of your other LLCs.
Yep.
But this is just a point of contact. So you just need to write it. It could be you again. This is the point of contact. Who's the owner? Ideally, if you've been listening to the first part of this podcast, the owner when you're starting out? Maybe your trust.
Yeah.
So your trust becomes in Idaho, the governor
Mhm.
or the
Oh,
member.
governor.
Or if you've gotten as far as what we, mid podcast, the Wyoming LLC could be that if you've already gotten this far. So anyway, you've got whoever's the owner, whoever's the registered agent, and then you need what's the physical address of the business.
Yep.
And what's the mailing address of the business? These can all be the same addresses. You can say the same address 4 different times. I'm the registered agent. This is my mailing. This is the physical. Blah 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 blah. And it's that simple. And that's all they really need from you. And then you hit submit. You give them $100, and then sometimes within a day or up to 10 days, they send you an email saying you're approved. Now you have what's called the certificate of organization. It's simply just a document that says filed on it. And this is the document it's like your birth certificate for a business. But with a birth certificate as a human, you also kind of need like a social security card, social security number. In business terms, it's called an EIN number.
Or just an EIN.
Or, yes, you're right.
It's not an employee identification number.
Employer identification number.
It's like a VIN number. When people say VIN number, right?
Yeah.
It's just VIN, dude.
Yeah, and you may be thinking to yourself, well, I don't know if I'm going to have employees right away, so I don't think I need that. You need it.
You do.
You need it. Yeah. So
the state will actually, if you're trying to set up a bank account, at least in Idaho, like you need your EIN and you need your operating agreement before you can even go open a bank account in the business's name. So they're going to stop you right away. Like you'll get halted in your tracks if you're trying to make money or get money into this LLC. You got to have a bank account that matches it. To have a bank account that matches it, you need to have an operating agreement and you need to have an employer identification number.
Yep. So we'll get to the employer. Or sorry, we'll get to the operating agreement here. Next step, go to the IRS website. Don't get tricked and go to the other websites. If you type in Google, like I need an EIN number, there's so many other websites that will gladly walk you through the process for $50. But you can go through it pretty quickly by yourself for free on the IRS website. Yes. Just follow the prompts. It's one of the first, like when you just go to the irs.gov website, the .gov, not .com, and you just say, file for an EIN number. Follow the steps. It just takes a couple of minutes to fill out the questionnaire. Sure. There's even a section for like real estate or what are you going to be doing with this? Are you going to be leasing real estate or buying or selling? Right. Blah blah blah. Just answer it all honestly.
Yeah, or as honestly as you can, because sometimes your bucket might not be exactly what it says on the screen.
Yeah. And if you screw up, if you're like, shoot, I'm not sure if this is this a partnership or a sole propriety, or is this an S corp, or is this a C Corp? It's going to ask you those options too at the IRS website. So just make sure, maybe consult with an attorney.
Yes.
I know this is what Jeremy wants to hear.
This is what I was going to say, Nick, because I like as much as you're saying, like go to the state website and go to irs.gov to do this yourself. This episode's about asset protection. Yeah. And while you can do it yourself, and most of the times you will be okay, if you have trouble or have questions, seriously, just pay the $1,000 to an attorney. Tell them exactly what you're trying to do. Yep. And they will walk you through the entire step, and they might even like find things that you're missing, basically. Like, I'm going to set it up to do this, to do this. They're probably going to give you a lot of recommendations that maybe us common folk won't even think about. So,
yeah. And I'm talking to the people out there as well that just don't have an extra $1,000 that they can afford an attorney. This is what you can do, and just know that you can always amend this stuff. Yeah. You can always change it. If you screw it up, the IRS is very forgiving.
As long as you're communicating with them. Yes.
Yeah. You can make changes. It's okay. You're going to be fine. It's better than nothing.
Sure.
This is what I want to. This is the message of today. Is the message that we're giving with asset protection? It's better than not having it at all.
I agree with you, but also I am going to say, if somebody's going to go through the hassle and starting up a $2,000 trust. And putting this beautiful like framework.
Oh well, I said for the people that don't have money, they can do it without money.
You're right.
Just take it to a notary. But just have ChatGPT draw up your trust.
In the event of,
because you can always change this stuff.
You absolutely can. But in the event, like I said, like if you are going to spend that $2,000 on an attorney, like you should spend $1,000 on getting your LLC properly set up as well. But
absolutely.
Also, again, like there's ways to do it without having to take these steps. So just use your own risk level and use your own knowledge. If you're uncomfortable with this stuff, seriously, just go talk to a professional. If you're comfortable, like it's pretty easy, it's pretty trivial. You can do it. It is time consuming, but it's not like that bad.
Oh, it's not that time consuming.
It's not when you know what you're doing, but for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, it can be kind of daunting.
Okay. No, fair enough.
Yeah. So again, just use your own. You can navigate the internet. It's 2024. You can click on some buttons. In the event you have questions, so consult your tax attorney or consult a legal professional.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Again, though, I do want to stress everything you're doing in the business world when you're setting stuff up. I haven't seen anything yet that you can't undo.
That's true.
Or that you can't make changes to.
Right.
Except for an irrevocable trust.
You can't touch that.
So don't do that. Do a revocable trust. So is what I'm saying making sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I just wanted to provide a counterpoint, right? Like,
yeah,
you're providing an easy way to do these LLCs and an easy way to do this trust, and I love it.
Yeah. Here's what you can't undo: is if you do everything without any kind of protection and then you get sued. You can't then go try to set up an LLC and all this stuff.
Right.
Then it's too late. It's important to just try to get in the habit of like building your foundation before you run out there and start putting up lumber.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So you get your EIN number. That is instant. The IRS doesn't say, okay, check back in 10 days or we'll send you an email. You just follow the prompts. And then like once you get to a certain page, it's just like, here it is.
Yep.
You can hit this download button and you're going to want to download and save that document. So 2 documents you have now at this point. If you're setting up an LLC, you've got the certificate of organization or the articles of incorporation. Every state maybe have a slightly different term for that.
Right.
But it's a 1-page document that just says who's a registered agent, who owns the business, and addresses.
Right.
And what's the business name and when was it filed with the state. Pretty simple document. That's just like, here's my birth certificate. It's a 1-page document. Another 1-page document is that the EIN that you'll get from the IRS. Save these documents. I recommend have a Google Drive.
I love it.
Yep. And also put it on your hard drive.
Also love it.
And archaic as this sounds, print it off. Put it in a filing cabinet. You want to have 3 storage to be, because since we're talking about protection here, document protection is an easy thing to screw up.
Right. And with this, like the whole reason is obviously like you want access to these documents whenever you need them.
Yeah.
Also, B, in your estate plan, if you do have a trust, like let them know where these documents are at.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like,
and they've got to be easy to access, at least from you,
right.
From, physical or on your hard drive and on Google Drive. Of course, there's different layers of protection you can put on that.
Right.
But honestly, if somebody gets a hold of your EIN number or your articles of incorporation, that shit's all public anyway. It's not a big deal. Like, it's not like you have to put extra security against this stuff. Use common sense.
Sure.
This isn't secret stuff here. It's not.
It's public record.
Yeah, your EIN maybe not so public, but it doesn't matter. I mean, somebody can't go easily grab your business and start running up credit. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's not the way life works.
Yeah. But what you're saying, it needs to be easy for, your trust to be able to access these documents as well. Right. So in the event of your untimely death or permanent disability, somebody needs to have an executable document on where all your stuff is at, where your passwords are at, where your bank accounts are at,
and this is all in your trust paperwork.
Right, of course.
Yeah. So if we started talking about that, this would go way longer now.
Yeah, don't worry about that then.
But that's in your plan. The trust is a big old document. I mean, it could be well over 100 pages of instructions on whatever things going on in the event of your death or your disability. If you become vegetable or something like that.
Sure.
There's also that kind of language.
Okay.
Anyway, getting off track here. One more thing that you're going to need for your LLC is an operating agreement. We've talked about this a couple of times. There's plenty of online free templates out there. What I would recommend is just talk to ChatGPT. If you're not talking to an attorney, that's the next best thing.
Yes.
Talk to ChatGPT about you, your situation, the business name, address, Tell ChatGPT what you want this business to do, how you want it to grow, how you want it to operate. Tell it everything.
Who's
and
the
then,
owner? Who's putting in capital?
Yep.
Yeah, anything you have about the business.
And
throw
I
it in
mean,
there.
start off that chat with, "Hey, I would like you to draft an operating agreement for this LLC, and with this is how I'd like to run it. Blah 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 blah." And it's going to probably spit out a pretty short document.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You can always change this, add to it. It'll probably and I don't mind short documented LLC on if it's just you as the owner.
Right.
If you're getting into a partnership with somebody else, probably speak to an attorney first.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to consider there. But if it's just you as a sole owner or just your trust as a sole owner, in my opinion, not such a big deal to have this massive operating agreement. Hey, quick commercial break here. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really do appreciate it. If you want to give back, let me help you buy a house, or I can help you sell a house. It's the only way I make money when I'm not investing in real estate. I don't make money on this podcast or the events I do, but I do make money only when I help people buy and sell houses. So if you're looking for your next investment and you're here in North Idaho, I want to help you personally. If you are not in North Idaho, I can still help you out. I have a vast network of referral partners all across the country in Keller Williams Realty, and I can find the right real estate investor savvy agent for you so you don't have to. It doesn't cost you a thing. Thank you for your support. Back to the show. I think just a couple of pages will do just fine.
Yeah.
You sign it, you print it off, you bring that to a bank, open a bank account.
Yep.
Business checking. Ideally, they give you a free one.
Yeah. Probably don't need a business savings, even though I have one. But like a lot of times on a business savings account, they make you have a minimum account in that balance.
Yeah.
In that account.
Yeah, $100 or something like that.
500 on Numerica, I think. Or
was it
SDCU? I don't remember. I
yeah,
have a lot of
Numerica's not
accounts.
quite 500. I think they want you to have like $20 minimum
Really?
or something like that.
Cool.
Or else they fine you.
Yeah. Or else they
They'll
charge
make
you
you
like
have
$50
less
a
money.
month. Yeah. You better put $20 in this account, or we're gonna charge you. Okay.
$6
A day.
No, it's like a month
Yeah.
or something. But mostly it's business free checking.
Right.
But I think if you don't have a certain amount of money in there, talk to your bank. Every bank's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But okay, so boom, you're in business. You got an LLC. That's really all you need. And then you just have to have, like I said again, I would put all these in a Google document. Like what I like to do is I like to have a folder with the LLC name, and then I like to have all these documents in there.
Yep.
And then anytime I'm doing any kind of purchases, if there's a property going in it, then in that folder I have another folder that is the address name.
Yeah.
And then I have all the documents with that address in there. So you have the way that your business is organized should also be the way that your folders are organized
Right.
within your Google Drive.
I love that. Yeah, yeah. Keep the structure kind of the same so you can find everything easily.
Yeah.
Love it.
Why not? I mean, it's also just, it gives good mental clarity too. And then when you got to share this stuff with your tax guy, it just makes things easier.
No, I love it. Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, even like Ginger Snap last year, I started that back up, obviously, and they're like, okay, we need all your documents. So I just shared him my Google Drive folder. I'm like, everything should be in here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't have to
my
print it off
EIN,
and run it down
I got
there.
a copy of that. I got a copy of my operating agreement. I got my certificate of whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Not like they need that.
Organization.
But they didn't need
Yeah.
it, but I have it in there anyway.
Yeah. And that stuff is public too.
Yeah.
People could just go pull that up on the Secretary of State website. It's not anything crucial there to usually have to share. But your bank typically wants to see that.
Yeah.
They don't want to dig that up themselves.
Yep.
Anyway. So what to expect? I think we talked about like expenses annually. Every LLC expect to spend a few $100s a year with just to do your taxes.
Yeah, and that's not to file.
Yeah, that's just the fee with your tax person to have another entity there to take care of.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, guys. That's why you don't always necessarily have to have 20 LLCs for all these different things that don't generate income. I would totally try to limit your LLCs to what brings in income.
Sure, I agree with you there.
And not have too many LLCs that don't, that you just try to get extra organized. Because then they might be eating you alive and you don't even know it.
Right, because even if you haven't made income, you still have to file.
Yep, exactly. You do. Or you get big filing fees. So there's another issue. If you're not filing on time and you have 7 or 8 LLCs. That's 7 or 8 times $2,500 in fees if for late, oh, I didn't file my extension on time with the IRS. Here's $2,500 for that, $2,500 for that. Crap, I just round up with 20 grand in fees. Yeah. Whoops. Talk to your tax guy. They can usually send letters to the IRS and trying to get those wiped away, which has happened many times with us.
Yep.
But it's something to consider.
Right.
Yeah. What other comments or questions do you have that you think people should know?
So I don't know, I like where your head's at. Like if you're going to be starting in real estate investing specifically, I'm assuming that's why you're listening, because that's what you plan on doing or are doing. Starting with that great foundation, right? Your trust is going to be beneficial for not just you, but all your family members. I don't want my stuff to go to probate.
Yeah, I don't either.
Right? Like that. Yeah. From what I've heard, that's a shit show.
Yes, it is. Yeah, because you have to go to court.
Right. Yeah.
Your family has to go to court.
Break it down a little bit. Like, what is probate? I mean, like,
probate is the state's plan for your stuff when you die.
Okay.
And you have to go to court and everything. I mean, I haven't been through it myself, but I bought properties that have gone through probate, and it's usually like a 4 to 6 month process. Of what ends up happening to the stuff, and it has to be signed off, by the court.
Sure.
When you have a trust, there is no probate.
Right.
This is the plan.
The plan gets executed.
If you don't have a trust, if you have a will, you still go through probate.
Yep.
It's still the state's plan.
Yep.
This is just what I would like to happen, and then the state will interpret that through the courts and be like, okay, cool, you got a will here, we'll follow this. But you still have to go to court. It's still expensive. You're going to spend more money in court, or your family will,
right,
than it would have been for you just set up the fucking trust right from the start.
Right. That's what I wanted to get you. Exactly where I wanted to get you, right? Because, like, yes, wills are, I guess they're important, but also, like, the state's going to look at this and be like, okay, I guess, like you said, we got to go to court now, and we'll start divvying up these assets if it makes sense. Like, it's a will. It's not a guarantee. The state can still put their fingers in that and be like, nah, we don't want that going there, or we're gonna.
Yeah,
they can
there might be creditors.
Yeah.
That you have to worry about. Like that. That's something where I don't think I can comfortably talk about too much. But what I've heard is that you have better creditor protection with your family heirs if it's in a trust. So if you just have like your life insurance or your stuff that just gets willed right to your kids, and if your kids have a bunch of debt out there, that some of that might get absorbed before they can have any money.
Yep.
If it's in the trust, no, this is the plan for the trust, and this is what the trust can do, and it has some sort of creditor protection there. I'm not sure exactly how it works,
right?
But from what I've been told, that's a perk of the trust versus a will.
Cool. So just it's a better way to get your assets distributed to where they're supposed to go.
Yeah, it's like this gives you the power to stick your hands up out of your grave and still have some control after you're dead of what goes on with your money.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's important. Like you want to leave your families with the best that you obviously can. Yeah. And a revocable living trust is the best way to do that, I think.
Yeah. So, and if you don't mind, maybe we can talk about the trust that I have.
Of course.
And some of the perks that, that we're able to implement there versus if it was the other way around.
Sure.
My kids are young. My kids are only 8 and 5. And if my wife and I passed away, what would happen is that there would be a big mess. The state, if we didn't have a trust involved, we own all these assets, and the state would have to get involved and figure out, okay, where are these kids going? Who's going to blah, 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 blah. It's going to be a mess. If we passed away, what happens is that the new trustee becomes my business partner, Joe Turner, who's savvy with real estate.
Yeah. And
she's going to get paid a fee that's disclosed in the trust of how much to be the, so she'll be the executor of the trust. She'll be the new, right now I'm the trustee.
Right.
If my wife and if I died, my wife becomes the trustee.
Right. If
she died too, Joe becomes our trustee, and she is able to, because I feel I have enough confidence in her that she knows what she's doing, and she can, just do what's in the trust. And if we died before our kids were old enough, you and Sam are going to be able to move into our house, or at least take care of our kids. Yeah, you have the choice. You don't have to move into our house, but you'll basically get
into your house.
you'll get a good chunk of, and I think it's like 50% or so of the assets for that. Now, if our kids are older, then that doesn't necessarily apply.
Right.
Then the kids will get it, but not necessarily right away, up to a certain age limit, because we don't want 18-year-olds to all of a sudden have all this money in control.
I get it.
And blow it all, and not know what to do. There's still somebody that is going to help educate them along the process of how to acquire, how to start getting control of these assets.
Sure.
It's going to take time.
Yep.
And there's also little things like if they wanted to buy a house, we'll help, pay 50% of the down payment. If they want to get their own house, and kind of nudge them along. If they want to start a business, we'll give like I can't remember, 5,000 or 7,500 towards helping them start their own business.
Nice.
That they can have some access with my preconceived what I think would be good if I was still a father, if I was alive, and if they were asking for me for money, this is how I would probably help them out.
Right.
And I can still do that even if I'm dead.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's what
I think it's a really good thing to have, especially for your kids. Obviously, nobody wants you to die, but it's so cool that you guys have a plan if anything does happen.
Yeah. And we've been talking about having this plan for 7 years?
Oh, yeah.
And just never did it. And that's what you
had a document on your computer, I think.
Nothing. I don't even think we had that. We just had a handshake, but but the handshake doesn't work in court.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's an example of what you can put in a trust. There's much more in that.
Sure.
I know my wife. If my wife was in a vegetative state, she wants them to just pull the plug.
Okay.
I don't. I want to go on for another 30 days. Like let's see how long if I can come back from this.
Right.
So there's also that too that you can put in there.
Yeah, and that's specifically like in the trust, right? So it's illegal to not do what the trust says. If somebody pulls the plug and your trust says you stay alive for 30 days,
give me one more chance.
Yeah,
that's what I'm asking
your
for.
heirs can sue the hell out of the doctor, the hospital.
Yeah, well, it's just simple. You can grab the binder and just go right to the part.
Right.
There's a tab for it.
This is what's to be executed.
Yep.
Not me. I will not be executed.
Exactly.
This plan will be. I think it's great. Like I said, you've got your kids set up in this way that obviously it would be detrimental if you guys died, of course. But it's nice knowing that you've kind of got them set up on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? We had the ability in this country to be able to set these plans for people, and most people don't.
Right.
Just because it's just another thing. They don't want to think about their death, and it's just not fun.
Yeah.
But once you do it, gosh, it feels good.
Sure. I
got to tell you guys for sure. It feels good to just get it out of the way finally.
That makes sense.
Instead of just talk about it.
And full disclosure, I don't have my trust set up. I have it set up I've got my beneficiaries on my business, I've got my beneficiaries on my life insurance, everything like that. And that felt fine, but I know in the event of my death, there's still going to be a shit show.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So it's really good.
Yeah. One thing I want to clear up in case you're wondering if you want to do the same thing, I'm not sure if I made it pretty clear or not. When it comes to the Wyoming trust, I just want to go backtrack to that real quick.
Okay.
That only really works for a holding company for rentals, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So if you have a service business here in Idaho, you don't necessarily want the Wyoming company to be an owner of that. Your trust can own that.
Yeah.
So just want to make that clear distinction real quick before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I think some people might miss. Again, the Wyoming company, that's if you have a bunch of rental properties, it's a great way to, for that company to be the holding company of the other LLCs.
Right.
So it really just works for that type of situation, not necessarily you're running your business.
Right.
Running your business, S Corp.
S Corp, and it should be set up in the state that you're doing business.
Yes,
absolutely.
Good point.
Just because it doesn't matter at that point, the IRS is going to funnel everything back to you and where the actual office is. So, if I do business in Idaho, and I'm saying I'm in Michigan, but I edit all my photos and stuff in Idaho, they're going to be like, "Okay, you did this wrong." And everything can be amended, like you said.
Yeah.
But it's nice to not have a slap on the wrist when it doesn't need to happen.
Exactly.
I try to stay out of their line of sight.
I think we covered everything I wanted to talk about. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah. I mean, just your cost to expect annually, obviously, you talked about what your CPA is going to charge you. And again, every state is different. It's going to have a different fee for what type of state you're in. Just do your own due diligence, of course. Idaho's free to file annually, like you said, which is really cool. But there are states like I think California is like $800 or $900 a year.
Yeah, ouch.
There's no getting around it if you're doing an operational business in California. Like just pay the $900 and move on,
Or just move.
or just move. Those are your options. Move on or move.
Yeah.
The one thing I did want to talk about earlier, or a little bit, and I think we kind of briefly touched on it, but you said if I was younger, I would have done this. You would have set up the trust younger.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What else would you have done if you were, brand new in this business and you were green and you were 20 years old trying to make it?
There's so many things. I mean, I'm kind of glad I wouldn't have changed up much because it's what got me here.
Of course.
To better be I would have been more organized back then.
Yeah.
Just because you wouldn't believe how much time you may spend on administrative tasks as a business owner.
Yeah.
And you can save so much time over time if you just get set up the right way the first time.
I love it.
And just keep good habits of being organized in general.
Sure.
So that's all. It's not fun to go back and fix everything later.
Right.
And if you get sued, which if you're in business for long enough, you probably will be, even if whether you did something wrong or not.
Yep.
So it's good to be organized when you get sued.
Yeah.
And you can't try to get organized after you've been sued, before court comes.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, I could be wrong on that. Yeah, I've talked to an attorney, but
very good point though. I mean, like at that point you're struggling and you're trying to figure everything out versus just like, okay, you get sued and you execute.
Yeah.
Okay, got everything ready. Let's make it happen.
Yep. And there's no ultimate asset protection out there. We're talking about limited protection, limited liability.
Yeah.
And if we could just focus on like, how can I limit the liability? There's always going to be potential for liability,
right,
but there are concrete proven ways to limit it. So why don't just start off doing that right instead of trying to fix it later?
Sure. I love it.
Yeah.
And I like what you said at the beginning of the episode. Like if you can swing it, like set up both term and full life insurance.
Yeah, that's a great way. And the reason why I say that, again, if you're confused by that, it will put you in a different mind state to know that, like, if you're a 23-year-old and you have nothing and you're just starting a business and maybe you're getting married and your wife's pregnant or vice versa, and you have nothing, just know it costs very little to go out and get life insurance. And then you'll know that, for $40 a month, $50 a month, depending on your health condition,
right,
at that kind of age, you can get $1 million to $2 million for less than $100 sometimes.
Yep.
If you died within 10 years, all of a sudden, just like that, you have something significant to pass down to your family if something were to happen to you.
And I will tell you,
it will change. You'll go from I have nothing to I'm building something here.
Right.
And if I were to pass immediately, I have a big nest egg already to pass on to these people. How can I do it right?
Right. I love that. And like, this is all stuff like, we're in our mid-30s right now. We didn't think about this stuff in our 20s. We didn't think about this stuff. Like, I didn't learn financial literacy until about a year and a half ago. And that's like, it's just how it went, like school doesn't teach you like how to be effective in retirement or save or like get your estate in order. Like it just teaches you how to be an employee for the most part.
That's all it does.
But on my own life insurance, like I have a term policy. It's $1 million term policy. I pay $40 a month for it. It's on a 10-year policy. So I'm going to pay $4,800 over the term of 10 years.
Yeah.
In exchange for the potential of $1 million that will help my family in the event of my passing.
I like those odds.
That's good odds. Like
that's what you got to say is, man, $40. And you did this in your 30s.
Yeah, I did this year. It's
going to be cheaper in your 20s, I promise you.
Yep.
If you're out there listening, you're in your young 20s or 18 even.
Yeah.
And you want to go get a 10-year term life, there's a difference. Whole life is like this will last until you're dead and the payments won't change.
Yep.
I believe.
I believe
payments don't change.
Yeah, talk with your financial advisor. But yeah,
with term life, like, hey, for a certain amount of time, 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, this is the payment. It doesn't change, and we'll pay out this amount.
Yep.
But they know, as you get older, this stuff gets more expensive because there's a better chance you're going to fucking die.
Right. And like that stuff, like, I've got this term policy for now. I could do another term policy. I could do a life policy as well. But right now, like $1 million would cover basically all my assets and all my debts. And it would cover.
Yeah.
It would get Sam in the event of my passing. It would get her some money to pay off the house and buy a couple more houses, or take a new trip with her new boyfriend after I'm dead.
Yeah. And that's all I wanted at first too. When I first got life insurance, we had a house and we had a couple of rentals, and I wanted enough money to where if I passed, all that shit would be paid off, and my wife can grieve.
Yep,
if she wanted,
she can cry into a little bit of money.
Yeah, and then she can go, ride some big new cock off into the sunset.
Yeah, exactly.
With some of my cash.
Yeah, and that's okay, right? Because that will be gone.
That's just fine.
But yeah, like we want what's best for our spouse. And it's a nice piece of mind being like, okay, if I die, like we're not gonna have to struggle paying our house payment. We're not gonna have to struggle, or she's not gonna have to struggle. I won't be struggling. I'll be dead.
It just gives, and everything we do in life is for some sort of feeling or peace of mind.
Right.
And that's why this is immensely valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Absolutely. So get yourself set up and get yourself in the right direction. If you have any questions, again, about how you should be setting this up, don't call me or Nick. Call your attorney or call your financial planner and start getting your ground floor in the right direction.
Yeah. But if you do want to set up a trust or something like that, go ahead and email me and I'll forward you the link to set it up.
Cool.
I don't mind doing that, at least. I don't get paid yet. Maybe Matt will pay me someday.
Yeah.
But I'd happily refer this company. That they're awesome.
Directed trust company?
Yeah. So, and to get my trust set up, it was $1,800.
Cool.
And it included 1 full hour of an attorney call about how this trust works. It only took maybe 20 minutes of
Did
that
you get
call.
to talk to Matt?
No, it was one of his other attorneys. But for about 20 minutes, we talked all about the trust and how it works and how it was going to be and how that was going to be played out. And he's like, well, you got another 40 minutes left. Do you want to save it for another time? I'm like, cool. He's like,
That's
well,
awesome.
let's set up, a couple weeks from now. And then we talked about the asset protection part of it. And I just laid out in 40 minutes, here's everything I own. What should I be doing differently?
Okay.
And he told me exactly what to do.
Like I've known I liked that company, but for a while, but like that speaks a lot of integrity, right?
Exactly.
Because if an attorney's like, you've got 40 minutes left, I'll give you another call later. Typically, they're just like, you're
good.
took care of everything in 10 minutes. I'm not going to call you back. Like your 10 minutes now translated to an hour.
Yeah,
this company is like, I'll give you an extra 40 if you have any more questions. That's great.
It didn't even have to be about the trust.
Right.
Because that I thought was like, damn, that's awesome. Because when you get a trust set up like locally, it'll cost you $5,000 to $6,000.
Yep.
Around here, and those dipshits are idiots.
Those dipshits are idiots.
Well, they just don't do hundreds of them a month like this company does.
Yeah.
So they work with investors all day long. This is their world.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to somebody who doesn't do it as often, an attorney locally, you're just gonna probably not get the most ideal advice.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, we're done, dude. Hope
We
you
out
guys
of here.
liked it.
Yeah. If you found this episode useful or helpful or, marginally okay, still leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go on our YouTube channel, The Investor Shed Podcast, and follow along with the 3 other people commenting on our stuff.
Oh, yeah. You can be the 4th commenter.
Yeah.
Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.